What if I told you that there's a completely legal loophole hiding in the US tax system that could save homeowners thousands of dollars, and most people have absolutely no idea it exists? For years, millions of homeowners believed they had to follow the same old rules when it comes to reporting property gains, selling a home, or managing real estate taxes. They assumed the IRS had every possible angle covered. But recently, tax experts and financial advisors have been pointing to something surprising: a perfectly legal strategy built into the tax code itself that many homeowners are quietly using to protect their money. And here's the shocking part: it's not new, it's not secret, and it's not illegal. In fact, the IRS openly acknowledges it in the tax code. Yet most Americans never hear about it because the rule is buried deep inside complicated tax regulations that the average homeowner rarely reads. Imagine owning a home for years, building equity, and then discovering there's a way, under the right conditions, to keep far more of your hard-earned profit instead of handing it over in taxes. For retirees, longtime homeowners, and anyone thinking about selling property in the future, this single rule could make a massive difference in your financial future. But before you assume this doesn't apply to you, wait until you hear who actually qualifies and how surprisingly common the situation is. Because once you understand how this loophole works, you'll start to see why so many people wish they had known about it sooner. So if you're a homeowner, or plan to be one someday, make sure to like this video right now, because what you're about to learn could change the way you think about your home, your taxes, and your money. Right after hearing about a so-called loophole, many homeowners feel two things at the same time: curiosity and skepticism. Curiosity because the idea of legally saving thousands of dollars in taxes sounds almost too good to be true, and skepticism because anything described as a loophole usually feels like it must be risky or complicated. But in this case, the truth is much simpler and much more reassuring. What people call a loophole is actually a perfectly legitimate rule written directly into the US tax code. A rule designed to help ordinary homeowners keep more of the money they've earned through years of paying mortgages, maintaining their homes, and building equity. To understand why this rule matters so much, imagine the typical homeowner's journey. Someone buys a house decades ago, maybe when they were younger, raising children, working long hours, and dreaming of the day they would finally pay off the mortgage. Over time, the neighborhood improves, property values rise, and the house that once seemed like an ordinary purchase slowly becomes one of the most valuable assets they own. Years pass, maybe retirement arrives, maybe the kids move out. Suddenly, that home could be worth 2, 3, or even 4 times what it originally cost. And that's when many people start worrying about taxes. Because when you sell something for more than you paid, the IRS normally considers that profit a capital gain. And capital gains are usually taxable. For investments like stocks, bonds, or rental properties, that tax bill can be significant. So naturally, homeowners often assume the same thing will happen if they sell their house. They picture the excitement of selling at a high price, quickly being replaced by a massive tax obligation that eats away at the profit they spent decades building. But here's where the story takes a surprising turn. The tax code includes a powerful provision that allows many homeowners to exclude a large portion of their home sale profits from taxation entirely, not defer it, not reduce it slightly, exclude it completely. In many cases, homeowners can keep up to $250,000 in profit tax-free if they are single, and up to $500,000 if they are married and filing jointly. And for millions of Americans, especially those who purchased their homes years ago when prices were much lower, that exclusion covers the entire gain. When people first hear about this rule, the reaction is often disbelief. They assume there must be complicated conditions, hidden penalties, or endless paperwork involved. But the basic requirements are actually straightforward. The IRS created this rule to benefit people who genuinely live in their homes, not investors flipping properties or landlords managing rental portfolios. In simple terms, if the home has been your primary residence for at least 2 out of the last 5 years before you sell it, you may qualify for that exclusion. Think about how powerful that can be. A couple buys a house for $200,000 many years ago. Over time, the neighborhood grows, the local economy improves, and the property value rises to $650,000. If they decide to sell, the difference between what they paid and what they receive is $450,000. Under normal capital gains rules, that entire amount could potentially be taxable. But under this homeowner exclusion rule, that same $450,000 gain could fall entirely within the $500,000 limit for married couples. The result is something that surprises many people the first time they hear it. They could legally owe zero federal capital gains tax on that profit. This is why some financial experts describe the rule as one of the most generous benefits available to everyday taxpayers. Unlike many tax strategies that require complicated planning or specialized investments, this one simply rewards people for living in their own homes and building long-term stability. It acknowledges that a home is not just an investment, it's where families grow, where memories are made, and where people often spend decades of their lives. Of course, understanding the rule also means understanding its boundaries. The IRS designed it carefully to prevent abuse. For example, the exclusion generally can't be used repeatedly in quick succession for multiple property sales. In most cases, you must wait at least 2 years before claiming it again. This helps ensure the benefit supports homeowners rather than short-term speculators trying to flip houses for quick profit. Another important detail is the difference between a primary residence and other types of property. Vacation homes, rental houses, and investment properties usually don't qualify unless they are converted into a primary residence and meet the required occupancy period. This distinction matters because many people own more than one property, and the tax treatment can be very different depending on how the home is used. Still, even with those limitations, the rule remains incredibly powerful. Think about retirees who purchased homes decades ago in areas that have seen dramatic growth. Cities that were once quiet suburbs might now be thriving communities where property values have skyrocketed. For those homeowners, the exclusion can mean the difference between keeping most of their sale profit or losing a significant portion to taxes. And this is exactly why financial planners often urge homeowners to learn about the rule long before they ever consider selling. Timing can make a big difference. For example, if someone moves out of their home and rents it to tenants for several years, they might eventually lose eligibility for the full exclusion if they no longer meet the primary residence requirement. But if they understand the rule in advance, they can plan their timeline in a way that preserves the benefit. Another interesting aspect is how this rule interacts with life events. Divorce, job relocation, health issues, or other unexpected circumstances can affect eligibility, but the IRS sometimes allows partial exclusions in situations where a sale is necessary due to hardship or significant life changes. This flexibility reflects the reality that life doesn't always follow a perfect schedule, and homeowners occasionally need to make decisions quickly. For many viewers watching this video, the biggest realization may be that they've unknowingly been building a tax advantage for years simply by owning and living in their home. Every mortgage payment, every renovation, every season spent maintaining the property has quietly contributed to the possibility of a future tax-free gain. And while housing markets can always fluctuate, long-term ownership has historically created substantial equity for many families. It's also important to understand that the exclusion applies to profit, not the total sale price. That means the IRS looks at the difference between what you paid for the home and what you sell it for, with adjustments for certain improvements or costs. Major renovations that add value, such as kitchen remodels, roof replacements, or room additions, may increase the property's cost basis, potentially reducing the taxable portion of the gain even further if the profit exceeds the exclusion limit. This is why keeping records can matter more than people realize. Receipts, renovation contracts, and documentation of major upgrades may one day help establish how much was invested into the property over the years. While many homeowners focus on the immediate benefits of improvements, those records could also play a role in minimizing taxes when the property is eventually sold. What makes this topic especially fascinating is how many people remain unaware of it until they are already deep into the selling process. Real estate agents sometimes explain it briefly, accountants may mention it during tax season, and financial planners might include it in long-term retirement strategies. But the average homeowner rarely sits down and studies the tax code. As a result, this rule often feels like a hidden advantage, even though it's been part of federal law for decades. And that brings us back to the idea of the so-called loophole. Technically, it isn't a loophole at all. A loophole suggests something accidental or unintended, a gap in the system that clever people exploit. This rule is the opposite. It was intentionally designed to encourage homeownership and provide financial relief to people who invest their lives in their homes. It's a policy choice meant to support stability, community development, and long-term investment in neighborhoods across the country. When homeowners finally realize this, the emotional reaction can be powerful. For someone approaching retirement, knowing that a significant portion of their home's value could be accessed tax-free may open new possibilities. It might help fund a move closer to family, pay for medical expenses, support travel plans, or simply create a more comfortable financial cushion for the years ahead. At the same time, it's important to approach the topic responsibly. Tax laws can change, individual circumstances vary, and professional advice is always valuable when making major financial decisions. What works perfectly for one homeowner might look different for another, depending on income, location, property history, or other investments. The goal of understanding this rule is not to replace professional guidance, but to empower homeowners with knowledge so they can ask better questions and plan more effectively. Ultimately, the most remarkable thing about this homeowner exclusion is how ordinary it is. It doesn't require complicated financial maneuvers, secret strategies, or risky behavior. It simply recognizes the role that a primary residence plays in people's lives. For millions of Americans, their home is the largest asset they will ever own, and this rule helps ensure that when the time comes to sell, they have a fair opportunity to keep the rewards of years of ownership. So the next time someone mentions a mysterious tax loophole for homeowners, remember that the truth is both simpler and more reassuring. It's not about tricks or hidden tactics. It's about a long-standing rule that quietly rewards patience, stability, and the decision to put down roots in a place called home. And for those who understand it, that knowledge alone can transform what once seemed like an intimidating tax situation into a moment of opportunity, confidence, and financial relief.